In September 1987, the city of Goiânia, in the heart of Brazil, became the scene of one of the most terrifying radiological disasters in history. A mesmerizing blue glow that brought with it a trail of death and contamination. This is the Shocking Facts About Brazil channel. Stay tuned for today's surprising true story. It all started when two scrap metal collectors found an abandoned radiotherapy device in a disused clinic in downtown Goiânia. Unaware of the hidden danger, they took the device to a scrap yard where the mysterious bright blue powder was revealed. The fascinating glow of cesium-137 enchanted everyone. People handled it, spread it on their skin, and even took it home, without imagining that this luminous powder was a death sentence. A few days after contact with cesium-137, the first signs began to appear. Nausea, intense vomiting, dizziness, and skin burns puzzled the residents. At first, no one imagined that this was caused by radiation. The bright blue powder seemed harmless, but its destructive energy was already causing irreversible damage. The radiation emitted by cesium-137 destroys cells in the human body, especially those that renew themselves quickly, such as those in the skin, blood, and gastrointestinal tract. One of the first victims, Dever Ferreira, the owner of the scrapyard, handled the material without protection. He began to suffer severe burns on his hands, which quickly necrotized. His wife, Maria Gabriela, who cleaned up the blue powder in the scrapyard and took some of it home, was also severely contaminated. They both suffered from acute radiation syndrome, a set of symptoms caused by high doses of radiation in a short period of time. Little Leda das Neves, just 6 years old, was fascinated by the blue powder. She spread it all over her body as if it were makeup, and even played with it. With such a high dose of radiation absorbed, her health deteriorated rapidly. The intensity of the radiation was so great that Lida had to be buried in a lead coffin to prevent further contamination. She and other victims did not survive the massive doses of radiation that relentlessly attacked their bodies. The city was thrown into panic. More than 100,000 people were tested. 249 were found to be significantly contaminated. Symptoms varied according to the level of exposure. People who had direct contact with cesium-137 suffered severe burns, bloody diarrhea, loss of appetite, and extreme weakness. Some developed cancer years later. Those who inhaled or ingested particles of the radioactive material suffered internal damage, including destruction of the bone marrow and failure of the immune system. The suffering of the victims was compounded by the lack of initial information. Doctors were slow to identify the cause of the symptoms, and many treatments came too late. The tragedy was not only physical, but also psychological. Many survivors faced social stigma. People avoided contact with those contaminated, fearing that the radiation was transmissible, which is not true. Behind this tragedy, the inevitable question arises: how was such a dangerous material disposed of so irresponsibly? The radiotherapy equipment containing cesium-137 was abandoned in a decommissioned radiology clinic in downtown Goiânia. This clinic, under the responsibility of its former owners, did not follow safe disposal protocols for radioactive materials, leaving the equipment vulnerable to anyone who found it. In addition, the regulatory authorities at the time failed to monitor and oversee the disposal of hazardous radiological materials. The negligence did not stop there. Even after the accident began, the delay in identifying the contamination and mobilizing resources to contain the disaster worsened the number of victims. The accident with cesium-137 was the result of a chain of human errors, showing how a lack of care, planning, and supervision can have devastating consequences. This was the largest radiological accident outside of a nuclear power plant in the world. The tragedy highlighted the importance of stricter laws and effective oversight on the use, transportation, and disposal of radioactive materials. Goiânia paid a high price to learn this lesson. Did you like this story? Subscribe to the channel for more curiosities like this, and don't forget to share it with your friends.